Thank you for watching, liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing right now.
If you haven't been able to tell, we've been streaming just me setting things up here for the past, I guess it's 5 to 10 minutes. This is using ustream.tv, which is a free service that anybody can use if you have a webcam and a microphone, or a webcam or a microphone, because you can either broadcast audio or video, or both. And I've been using this service, ustream.tv, for about a year and a half, pretty much since it launched. The domain that I usually tease out is live.pirillo.com, just because I'm going to own that forever, at least I hope. And that will likely change to dead.pirillo.com as soon as I pass away, because I do plan on writing into my last will and testament, having a webcam trained in on my decomposing body, so that people can come in and say whatever they want. I'm sure the necrophiliacs of the world will enjoy that one. So hey, it's the internet. That's the killer app, right? You know what I'm saying? Porn. Okay, so anyway. So I guess we're going to be talking or discussing cultivating community. And I guess this is kind of something that I've always just done, you know, without even knowing it. Didn't really read any books. Didn't really go to any seminars. Back in 1990, when I started online, 1992, really the only web communities, well, weren't web communities, because the web wasn't there yet. You guys remember when the web first came around? Or, were you online when the web first came around? People used to have to finger my plan to find out what I was doing. Does that sound bizarre? Who gets that? When I say fingering my plan, okay, great. These are terms that we used before the web. A plan was just a text file that you would edit with your keyboard, and you would say whatever you wanted to say. In fact, depending on where you were hosted, or where you were at, where your account was at, like mine at the University of Northern Iowa, it may actually respond with, when you fingered someone's email address, finger space, their email address, it may return the last time they checked their email, or whether they were online and active in their account at that point in time. This is how far we've come. In fact, I think, I believe, well, Windows used to come with the, at least I think XP came with the finger service. Try it at a command prompt, and I think the network utility in Mac OS X still has finger. If you always wanted to know what it was, it's just basically pointing at something, what's going on over there. And it was exciting because we could actually finger Coke machines out on the internet to find out how much Coke or Diet Coke or Sprite was left over in a machine that we would never possibly ever see. And this is what we shared back and forth thanks to the great Scott Yanoff and his internet list, which of course predated Yahoo, which I first started visiting when it had a tilde in its URL, and not the .com. So I've been doing this for quite a while. But I talk about community a lot, and I know people have a lot of questions about community. And there really is no right answer for it. There's a right direction for it. I've got a handful of presentations that I've made, but one, I guess, I don't know what you would call it, nugget that you may take away from this particular session before we dive into it, is that the best community tools can't be written. The best community tools exist here and here. Because if it isn't here and it's not here, the community won't exist. A forum, a mailing list, a blog, a podcast, those are just tools. And so are you if you believe that's a community. Hope you don't mind me calling you a tool, unless you really deserve to be called that, in which case that's up to you. So I thought I would actually, I'm not a speaker, I really am not, as evidenced by many of the things that I do. I'm a talker, and I'd much rather converse and much rather answer the questions if you had any, and I would rather involve that session, or this session, in that capacity. Because, well, first of all, to make sure that I can answer questions, rather than saving them to the end, I'd rather answer them like right up front. Is anybody having like questions in their mind, like why they even came here? Yes?
I'm just really curious to find out about your background. And you started apparently at the university working with computers. Or maybe you can sort of walk us through what your career's been like and what you've done.
Sure. That's a germane question. I started in 1992, and I sent an email to a person sitting across from me in a computer lab. And I knew that would change my life forever. I just knew it. Never forget that moment for the rest of my life. Sitting right here, use no further away than you. Just type. All of a sudden I get this message notification that so-and-so sent me. It was a wacky, like eJans 7043. It was just, but it was at a university level. I said, oh my God, this is it. My life has changed. And at that point I was going to be, I was studying a degree in English, or no, not at that point, elementary education. And I was going with a theater minor. So I was going to be a school teacher. And it's just like, whoa, dude. And then it evolved from there. I started what is this internet thing all about? There's email, and there's these things called the news groups, and you can do this, and you can do that, and you can download things to the computer and look at pictures. Wow! Again, before the web, before we took all these things for granted. But it excited me because there was a BBS that is still around called ISCA, and it was hosted at the University of Iowa, which was just south of the University of Northern Iowa. Hence, being in the north, everything would be to the south. I'm sorry, it makes sense to me because I'm from Iowa. So a lot of people would end up telnetting in there. They would use the telnet protocol to come in, and in fact, I wonder if I could try to pull it up. I used to have an account. It was still active, and then it ended up dying off. If you weren't active for 3 months, your account would die. And I had a very, very, very low user number, which was like 20,000 at that point. But it ended up just ballooning. It was a place where people could go, and still can go, to interact with each other. You could do basically, you type W. Sorry, I'm just remembering in my head. You type W, you would get a list of usernames who were online, when they came online, and where they were coming in from. So like a host name. And you would find a lot of university level, very few .coms at that point, very few .net, most of them were ISPs. Not a lot of AOLers at that point either. And you would see someone, and you say, oh, that person, that's an interesting handle. Like, oh, that's a Monty Python reference, I know that. So you can, I think it was, I can't remember the key command. There's a key command that you can pull up a profile for that person, where they would have, 5 lines of, this is what I'm doing right now. This is who I am. If you want to talk to me, I'm really interested in that's what I do. And that's what you do. You hit X. You hit X space and their username. And then you would interact with them. And you could queue these messages. This was instant messaging before instant messaging. This was like in the days of DOS. Like, no graphics at all. Nothing to click on. It was wonderful. And you would interact with people, and you would get to know people, or you'd find out that your friend from this class was also in there, and you'd be talking about things, and you could participate in forums. You could basically hit J and jump to a forum name. There was a variety of, if you can imagine there being a forum today, or a website for an affinity today, it was likely there, or at least it was there at the time. And if it wasn't, you could propose a new one. So it was a community that was disparate. You would be able to find out about people and their interests largely from their participation in these forums. But you could also communicate with them in real time, which is just. I just can't tell you how exciting it was to be able to type 5 lines to someone random and meet them potentially in real life at some point. And that's how I just realized that more of my social life would happen online than in an offline capacity. Certainly that's come to fruition. Through no fault of my own. I'm an extroverted introvert, much like a few other people like myself. So it started there. And I ended up switching my major to English education because I still wanted to get a job, when I graduated. And I'd been doing a lot of writing in the news groups, a lot of creative writing, a lot of personal essay, or as we would call it, blogging. Anybody take a personal essay class in college? Anybody? Oh, great. So that's what we called it back then, personal essay.
I went to school in Iowa, too. So.
You did?
I went to college in Iowa, yeah.
Which one?
Wartburg.
Oh, Wartburg. Great. See, Iowans are everywhere. That's like Iowa's chief export is people, just so you know. It's very true. I'm sorry not to offend the Iowans watching this video, but it's just absolutely true. So, huge brain drain there. As I went through my college career, if you call it that, I didn't realize it until I was student teaching in San Antonio, a class in English, an English class for I think it was junior high. And this is at a time, again, this is 1995. Windows 95 had just been released. I was lucky to have dial-up, at 30 hours a month for about $60. So what I would do is I would receive an email from CNN.com every, at 2 in the morning. It would be like the latest headlines in a little paragraph. And I would take that little clip and rework it and change a few things, grammatical, punctuation, structure, everything. And then I would take it into the school and run it off on a transparency, because we didn't have PowerPoint, run it off on a transparency so that I could put it on an overhead projector and put it up there, and then we'd go through it with a marker and say, okay, so what's wrong with this particular paragraph? So I was trying to bring current events and what I really loved about the internet back into the classroom. And at some point, I stopped in the middle of a presentation there in the classroom, and I said, I shouldn't be doing this. I should be doing something with computers. And the whole class went, well, duh. Like, well, why was I the last to know? So I've been following this path that I thought was, pretty much that's the way you're going to be an English teacher. And I started to rework my life to just doing the things that I love doing. And that was just being online and figuring out how I could be online and make a living from it. So I was able to do that. Not long after graduating in 1996, I started a company that I've had for the past 12 years and started publishing an email newsletter, which it's a part of a community, but it's not the community itself. It's still around. The website's lockergnome.com. I would very much blog via email. Again, I'm using the term because we all kind of understand what a blog is now, but it wasn't work back then. And I'd write about my personal life, and I'd write about things that I found really interesting and cool on the internet. Before I knew it, I had about 100,000 subscribers. I had then written a book on how to do email publishing, because at this point in time, spam wasn't even a word. I mean, it was. Spam kind of started on the news groups, but it wasn't associated with junk email as much as it is today. So I was talking about how to really create and cultivate community using email, and again, using personal voice, making a connection with somebody else, and that usually happens by way of personal voice, because that's how community grows, in your head and in your heart. So that evolved, and at one point in time, one of my friends who had a website, he got featured on this network called, at that point it was ZDTV, and I was like, well, his website sucks. I'm like, mine's better than that. So I emailed the producer. I'm like, well, hey, you're asking for feature submissions. What about, I got something okay here. And so they did. They featured it. And then not long after that, I got a call. I said, well, do you want to come on and talk about your book on one of our shows? It's called The Screensaver. I said, sure, why not? And that recording is actually, it's on YouTube still. Someone had clipped it and uploaded it. That was my first appearance. I was in Iowa, so I could not get at that point ZDTV, and that of course evolved into Tech TV, which is now devolved into G4, which is we'll leave the opinions for another discussion. So basically, the next day after I did that interview, I was called up by a different producer and saying, hey, how attached are you to Iowa? Would you like to come out and do a screen test and possibly host a show? I'm like, okay. Sure, why not? So my career took me that way. Moved out to San Francisco after I was accepted for the position of hosting, at that point, Call for Help. Even though they didn't know if I was going to be hosting Call for Help or the Screensavers at that point, I kind of hit the scene that way. Some people liked me, other people didn't. I thought my name for a while was You're Not Leo, and so I thought Not Leo I was going to change my first name legally to Not Leo. I got used to hearing that. Didn't bother me a bit. Although some people do believe, I don't know if this is urban legend or whatever, but some people believe I got my start at Tech TV, but it's not true. I got to Tech TV for all the things that I was doing from the years prior. Just being active, being very energetic, excited about things that I was genuinely excited about. Genuine. It's part of the heart. It's part of the soul. So then after Tech TV, and people always ask what happened. I said, well, Tech TV is no longer around, and I still am. Do the math. So it's a math game. It's evolved as the internet has evolved, my involvement with it and what I do. 2 years ago, I wasn't able to do live video streaming, and suddenly then I was able to because there was a free service out there. I had broadband, and I thought, well, who's going to watch me? I'm the world's most boring guy. All they see is the back of my head. And I'm like, hey, this might work. And so I did it. And so now I think 500 people, I guess, are watching me babble on and on about how I got to this position. But my heart, my soul, my mind have always stayed the same. My passions have generally stayed the same. It's just the tools have evolved around them. And that's much like the way community works. Community is there anyway, whether you know it or not. The people in this room are part of a community, a local community. But community has evolved to the point where it's no longer held by boundaries. I've got more in common with a gentleman who lives in Ireland than I do with my next door neighbor. We're part of a community, each one of us, respectively, but there are different types of communities. Community is there, whether it's palpable or not. And this is something that, again, over the years, I've just come to understand. Community is what's in you, and without you, there is no community. And you are a walking Venn. Every one of us in this room, every one of us on this planet is a walking Venn diagram. Does that make sense to any? Does that not make sense to someone? Okay, a Venn diagram is a way. I wish I could pull it up. Huh? Think of like two circles where they cross. You may be interested in refried beans. Sorry, that's what I had for lunch. That's why I'm up here. Refried beans, and you live in Arizona. Well, right in the middle, see, you're not just someone who is interested in refried beans, you're also someone who lives in Arizona. So you've got that crossover point right there in the middle. There are probably other people who are in that as well, people who like refried beans and live in Arizona. Then you throw another circle in there, and then the people in this circle are people who hate wearing lanyards. And so you may be someone who hates wearing lanyards. And so that Venn diagram is just this crossover of all these different components. So there's a quick tutorial on what a Venn diagram is, but it's a perfect explanation for who we all are. If you've ever taken the time to try to draw a Venn diagram and simplify yourself, it's a lot of fun. I mean, not for math. I mean, I'm horrible at math, right? But I love visual imagery. It's tangible to me. I understand that. And a community is very much a Venn diagram. At that point that you're in the middle, that's you. So you may exist inside the World of Warcraft community. You may exist inside the PodCamp Arizona community. You may exist inside the We Like Buying T-shirts from Threadless community. You may, all these different things. And wherever you go, you're a part of a group. And the internet has evolved to the point where community is everywhere, whether there are boundaries defined or not. And it's distributed. Much like brand is becoming increasingly distributed, so is community. How many? YASN, yet another social network. Gee whiz! Oh, I can find my friends on goobityblock.com. Oh, right. Oh, I can post my status messages. Why? People know where to find me. My friends usually know where to find me. But that being said, the people who are my friends on Facebook are not necessarily my friends on Twitter. And the people who are my friends on Twitter are not necessarily my friends on FriendFeed. And the friends who are over on Friendster are not necessarily my friends on MySpace. So suddenly I have to become distributed, right? And that's not exactly scalable on my time or attention. So what do? Well, then I come to rely on tools like ping.fm, a free tool that basically sneezes out your status to a variety of sites. It's a free service. So that way I'm able to post without cross-posting. That's another thing that annoys me. I'm not going to get into the annoyance right now, but I can basically update my status on Twitter and update my status on Facebook and update all independently. So I'm a part of these different communities, but they don't necessarily, the person over in this community doesn't care that I'm active necessarily over in this community, because that's where they live and that's where they want to be. So that's where I want to be vicariously, because they're over there. I must have overloaded it. Or either that or it's a screensaver. I can kick it. Yeah, I say I can kick it. See, and I realized too, oh, there's an ad there. I realized that this is likely distracting, which is fine by me because I'm easily distracted. No doubt about it, if you didn't figure that out by now. So, community has now, it's no longer just one place. Like it was back in the early 90s for me, ISCA, this BBS that I would telnet into, and at one point I needed to get a client, I needed to get something on my, at that point, VMS account, so that I could connect to it faster in the queue of people, because only 200 people could, no, was it 200 or 400? I think maybe it was 400 people could be on this BBS at one point in time. So you could only get on if you got in the queue if someone else had hopped off. So it was a big deal, right? So it went from that to what we have today, where it's everywhere. We don't have to if you blink, you're missing it. There's something new is happening every time you turn around.
Where do you think we're going tomorrow?
It's going to become increasingly. The question was, where do you think we're going tomorrow? And the answer, I believe, is it's going to become further spread out. But as it continues to spread out, the importance for everybody to own their own identity becomes increasingly important. And I don't just mean your username. And I don't just mean your account on Facebook or MySpace or name the social network. I mean you. There's currently no way of tying my activity with me. There's just no way. The system's not set up for that. So as much as we're seeing all these new services come about, it becomes increasingly important. This is why you see a lot of buzz around the idea of OpenID. Whether or not it's fully baked, it's a discussion for another session, I'm sure. But I think the idea behind it is pure. Let the person be in control of who they are. Because if they're not, well, then who owns that identity? It always cracked me up when I'd see pages or portals, as we called it before the first bubble, when it'd say, like my MSN, well, even MySpace. Well, it's not MySpace, it's your MySpace. It's just funny when you think about it. Well, it's funny when I think about it, but I think about funny things. So I don't do many funny things, unfortunately. The way that it's spreading out is the way the internet was kind of, this is the way it was built. It's just now we've got the development tools are easy. When I started writing, in my day, you didn't even have HTML email, right? When I sent out emails, there were no CMSs that were either developed or that a mortal could afford. Well, fast forward to today, and now a lot of people kind of hack and shim their way into making something like WordPress be a CMS, a content management system. The publishing tools are there. I'm doing this. It ain't costing me a thing. Couldn't pull that off years ago. So a lot of these services that cost a lot are going to increase increase the marketplace for competition, and then vicariously drive down the price. I mean, supply and demand. It's simple economics, which is the only economic theory I ever understood. The only way I passed economics in high school was because the teacher allowed me to take retests, and even then, I still passed with a B minus. But that I understood, supply and demand. So the supply of bandwidth is going to become more rich. The supply of applications, the supply of developers, the supply of tools, the supply of ideas is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Demand is always going to be there. I mean, we could always want more. We could always want something different. And the best thing for tomorrow is that we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We're almost here. I mean, we're going to be on the precipice of this chasm, I'm sure, indefinitely. Chasing these ideas and trying to put all these pieces together. And I think that's what makes a successful, to bring it into relevance for this particular conference, PodCamp, so I assume most people in here are podcasters or certainly doing something, publishing audio and or video and or media online. It's being able to put different pieces together that will define your success. And it's the same way with the community. As I said in the beginning, when I inadvertently offended half of you, the first time, or maybe it was the second time, a blog, a forum, a mailing list, a podcast, all these things, they're not a community, they're tools. And a podcast, I argued with this. And Dave, as soon as I heard it, I'm like, wait a minute, it's an MP3 file in conjunction with an RSS feed. That's what it is. That's it. Nothing magical about it. It's just media. It's just being distributed. So a podcast is nothing more than a mechanism. It's a delivery mechanism. I mean, right? Tell me I'm wrong.
That's right.
Right. It's not a file format. It's an MP3 or MP4 or whatever media you have to use. It's just a tool. It's a vehicle to help get you to where you want to go. And everybody's goals are different. And eventually you'll be out there doing whatever you're doing, whether it's a simple post on Twitter, 140 characters or less, or whether it's active in a forum or a blog or a podcast. And pretty soon you're going to find that your Venn diagram suddenly intersects with other people's, or at least at one point. And at that center point of a Venn diagram, that is where community exists, because that's where you exist. That's what I mean. So hopefully I'm getting you people who are audio learners and visual learners as well. Question?
What online community do you prefer most?
What online community do I prefer most? You know, it depends on the year, because it's always changing. This is where my wife would get very upset at me, because she says you never answer a question straight. I'd be a great politician. I just don't have the stomach for politics. There's no community that I value more than a community that protects itself. And a community that doesn't protect itself isn't much of a community. And what I mean by that, when you've established or you've been inside an established community where you've got these norms, these unspoken mores, like, you know, this is our language, and these are our acronyms, and these are our inside jokes. And then someone comes in from the outside, and they start doing things wrong, like just blatantly wrong. If no one steps up to the plate, they expect a moderator or an administrator to step up to the plate. That's not a good community. A good community will take care of itself. They'll come in and say, nope. Or they'll say, they'll tell a moderator or an administrator they trust. They say, by the way, so-and-so is doing this over here. You may want to check it out. Didn't want to do anything or whatever. That is a community. And you only get that through cultivating it. How do you cultivate it? What's in your mind? What's in your head? What's in your heart? What's in your soul? If you're creating a website and you don't care about the topic or the subject matter, chances of someone else liking it and wanting to participate, I mean, it could happen. It's not very likely. I mean, you wouldn't want to start something, a blog, a podcast, whatever, without you being closely tied to the subject matter, would you? Or have you? Because I'd love to see the anomaly. Because every time I've seen it happen, it fails. Because there's no passion. There's no soul to it. And a community has a soul. And it ebbs and flows, much like audiences, much like the rest of the internet. So that's why it shouldn't bother you when someone says, I'm unsubscribing, I'm leaving. Okay, you want a cookie? The internet's a big place. I know no one's done this to me at this conference yet, so I'm just going to warn you now. Some people come up to me and they say, oh, Chris, I'm sorry, I don't read your blog. I'm like, what? I'm the only blog on the planet? Like, I expect that you have nothing better to do with your time than to track my every movement, to know exactly what I'm doing, to know every single one of my blog posts. Some people do. It scares me. But my point is there's a lot to do on the internet. And if something's not happening, and if you don't see it happening, then you have the opportunity to make something happen. If you know that there's an affinity that's not being addressed, because community typically revolves around some type of affinity. Sometimes it revolves around locality. Sometimes it's a matter of both. But it's where you find yourself that makes it the best community. So I don't really know how to answer that question, and hopefully I did not successfully dodge it. Thank God we don't have a speaker voting forms at the end here, huh? Do we? I don't know. Hopefully not. Great politician. So, question?
How do you get a very diverse group of people who may have the same sense of interests, but don't know it, to communicate with each other, to find out?
It's an excellent question. I'll try to restate it or reiterate it. How do you get a bunch of people with separate interests or different backgrounds, whatever, to come together when they don't necessarily know that they all have the same interests? So how do you connect this bubble over here with this bubble over here? Sometimes it's as simple as making those connections for people. If I had a title, and I use different titles depending on my mood, sometimes I find myself being someone who puts together puzzles, and seeing something or somebody over here and making a loose connection over. I'm a great conspiracy theorist for this very reason. You jump into conclusions. Making those connections sometimes is the responsibility of someone who sees those connections, and sometimes those connections exist. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes you can make them exist, or you find a way to make them exist. Give it, creating a common interest or a common ideal or a common something to rally around or to discuss. And it's a greater challenge for a community because communities as they grow organically, and what I mean by that is you cannot just say, I'm going to create a community. Bullshit. That doesn't happen. Anybody who says that doesn't know what's going on inside the world of communities. Community just grows on its own. And what you can do is you can lay the groundwork, feed, water it, let it grow, prune it when you need to, let it take care of itself when it gets sick, help it along if something happens, and watch it almost like a benevolent dictator might, like, okay, this is the way it's going well, and sometimes the community knows better than the community owner. This happens a lot with businesses and brands as well. You saw, one example of this. Sorry, my pants are buzzing. You can't hear it. I feel it though, just so you know. If you see me get this sly grin on my face, it's why. So anyway, sometimes it's putting those pieces together. Sometimes it's around a tool, and sometimes communities will latch onto a tool. Some communities grow out of just using a forum, or this forum software, and then as soon as that forum software changes, half the community leaves. Or as soon as a new something comes, we've now got blogs, they never take off because that community is rallied around that particular tool. They're not interested in other tools; they're interested in that tool. Why? I couldn't tell you because they like the way the bold icon shows up. I don't know. Taking a community here that exists with its own language, its own ideas and ideals, and leaving it open enough to grow on its own and letting the community provide as much feedback as you're putting into it is going to help bridge the gap between people who may exist here with this interest and potentially another, a tangential interest. So like inside this community, there's there's 50 of us who really, really, really hate lanyards, and we need to make a group on lanyards. Can we do this? Okay, sure, do it. So now you've got this sub-community here, and they're talking about lanyards. Well, then this other person over here didn't realize that was happening. It's like, oh, well, yeah, I am too. And so you've got enough of a groundswell so that even within a similar structure, you let them organically grow their own and give them enough tools to kind of make that happen. And vicariously, other people will come in through discovery mechanisms. Sometimes that discovery is, hey, there's something going on, here's an announcement, and sometimes that discovery is more organic in the sense of sending an instant message or an email and saying, hey Bob, I know you've always been interested in this, there's a group of people that are doing X, Y, and Z, and making the connection that way. It's very, very powerful. Relationships in that sense are extremely powerful.
So should you ever actually consider splitting up a community? For instance, I have a pretty strong website that's really focused on one specific area of the news. A lot of people just they want the news, they want the headlines, but half the community is interested in what I have to say about this, so they have to care less what my thoughts are on it. And so we constantly kind of have this battle.
Splitting a community?
Yeah, so what do you do? How do you address both those issues?
How do you address the issue? And I'm just reiterating, just so for everybody's clarity. What happens, and you've got a community, a news community where you report the news, and some people just want the headlines, just give me the meat, and some people really want to hear your opinion, they want to hear your perspective. And by the way, that if there's a community, I'm not going to say that the ones that just want the headlines of the community, there's more of a community found in the people who are interested in your perspective, because that's that personal connection that you're making. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. If you can accommodate both, then certainly that would be the path. So it's, I'm just thinking in my mind, my wheels are turning. I was like, well, you could do a blog, and you could just on the front page, you just got the latest headlines. But then someone could always click in deeper and read your perspective if they open something and they want to go one level deeper. And if they don't have to. That would be the short answer to the question. A much longer philosophical answer would be, the community is going to split itself. You can provide that separate path, but ultimately someone's going to decide, well, this is enough for me, or I want more. And again, going back to the idea of each individual is their own community, and the communities that they involve themselves in just kind of pop up around them. Ultimately everybody's going to make their own decision and go one path or another. You can better facilitate it usually through usability and just changing the way that you may do things if you're doing things differently than the way you're doing it now. And that's that, or if they just want the headlines, you say, well, that's why that's why they made RSS readers. Like just look at the headlines, then hit delete. It's usually not the answer that people who propose such a thing would want, but there's only so much time in the day. Ultimately, though, you have to serve yourself, and as selfish as that sounds, it's very important. Going back to the whole heart, head, soul thing. If you're not in it anymore, man, it's gonna be really hard to do. I mean, I know that just from my personal experience. I mean, I've done my best to kind of carve myself into just more of a technology addict. But when I came out strong and heavy, I still have very strong opinions of hardware, software, services, the internet, all this stuff. But I really established myself as a Windows fanboy. And as soon as, in my humble opinion, Windows took a turn for the worse, I didn't exactly jump ship, but I certainly made Windows a lesser part of my regular routine and my content subsequently followed. To the point where some people now call me a Mac fanboy. I'm like, well, I'm old, so I don't care what I use the best tool for the job. But some people make up their own mind on their own, and you really can't do anything about it. Did that dodge the question?
That's good.
I have to ask it that way. Yes?
What do you suppose one of the biggest downfalls of being an online personality is? Aside from being a Mac.
The biggest downfalls of being a
personality online.
A personality online.
I mean, because your life is online quite a bit. I mean, do you ever hear things? Jesus,
okay, I'm going to, pardon this, I'm going to do my best to connect, because I actually did a presentation, an Ignite presentation. It was a private Ignite one, but I posted this video to YouTube after I got to get back to the port. After I did it, it was 10 ways that live streaming would change your life. And I'm just, if you'll pardon, I'm going to do my best to not break something here. Like my computer, hopefully not break it. Is it? Okay. I may have to, there we go. It's going to look weird in chat. I'm sure down in the corner it's going to look weird. Did it need to flip? Oh, thank you. Thank you for making the switch. Now you're looking at my computer and the chat room there and the console there. And I'm going to minimize that. And I'm actually going to, I think this is it. I'm just launching a keynote presentation that I did. The wallpaper, by the way, changes on a different basis. There's a free tool for Mac or Windows called Desktoptopia. Wonderful download. Try it. Desktoptopia for either Mac or Windows. It's awesome. Changes your wallpaper, downloads awesome wallpapers from the internet. Okay, so I posted here, and I don't have a pickle with me, so and that's, I guess, not so technical term for a remote, like, I think it's a slide something. This is a YouTube link to someone had recorded. If you do a YouTube search or a Google search for puppy dog blooper, you'll pull it up. And what had happened was one of my dogs, Wicket, jumped up on my desk when I wasn't there, and someone was recording it, and he ended up falling off. It's pretty funny. So 10 ways that live streaming would change your life. I've got a variety of stats here, which numbers. So the first thing that I discovered is that you begin to see yourself through other people's eyes. This is probably the most, how do I explain this in a way? Like, you think you are one person until someone perceives you as somebody else. It happens a lot. And when people get upset, I mean, if you've been involved in the internet and publicly, whether you're just writing articles or whatever, and someone writes you just a nasty email or an IM or just ripping you apart, trying to make you feel this tall. It's because they're seeing you through their eyes. And when you say something that suddenly just disagrees with their perspective of you, they get mad at you. Well, that isn't your problem. It's their problem. It's like when people accuse me or call me names or give me labels, I'm like, well, it's your label of me. That's not me. It's your label of me. But sometimes you begin to see yourself. Why do they perceive you that way? What are you doing? What am I doing to make people believe that? Is it just one thing that I did, or is it several things that I did? Is there a habit that I've got that I'm not aware of? Do I, what do I do? Like, well, you got lice or something? No, why are you saying this? Okay. Number 2, family will begin avoiding you at all costs, basically. This one always cracks people up for some reason because some people really would like that to happen. Yeah, family. Oof, let me tell you. This is very true, though. In doing what I do, and that is, I guess, live streaming or being very transparent about my personal and professional life. Although I am far less personally transparent as I used to be. I am now in my second marriage, and after my first marriage we divorced. A lot of people took that, they couldn't take it, they couldn't deal with it, and because I had put so much of my personal life online, suddenly that personal life was gone. Like it was just, right, it was my life, right? And at that point, wife and dog and my whole everything was that, and so I had to change, and I realized, people can't deal with my changes, and I became at that point with writing at least, and that was my primary vehicle of communication. I become a lot less personal. And even now, today, when I produce audio and or video, it's likely a lot less personal for that very reason. But just because I want to do something and be out there, I own it. This is me, I own it. But my family doesn't necessarily want to own it. If you want to do a Google for the Maui incident, I believe you may have to do Maui Pirillo, but an interesting thing happened. Apparently, my wife and I were on vacation in Maui, and I'm not a great vacationer, and I really dislike the heat. I'm not a big outdoorsman, not really someone who takes long walks. I don't even take short walks on the beach. Not my thing. And so apparently I was complaining, which I only later found out through another friend saying, well, you don't really complain, you just say what's on your mind. It's not really a complaint, it's just whatever you're thinking. I'm like, yeah, it is. So I do share my feelings. I just share it in micro chunks. But it comes out as complaining. Well, apparently my wife had enough of it, and we just got off of this horseback ride, and my horse was all over the place. It was like, God, not my thing, okay? And on our way back, she was so livid that she blogged it. She said, "What's wrong with this guy? What's wrong with him? What a jerk! We're in Hawaii. He's blah, 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 blah." I'm like, "Oh, you shouldn't have done that, dude." I was like, that was the wrong thing to do. And of course, she was all emotional. Like, it was the right thing to do. I did the right thing. I'm not gonna regret it. It's like, dude, you don't understand what you did. It's like Pandora's box. And of course, that's what happened. A crystal ball prediction. People just laid into me. Some people were like, oh, what an asshole. Oh, yeah, he's a jerk, blah, blah, blah. And then some people were defending me. It's like, no, Ponzi, you beat him. So then this vitriol was just pouring in. I'm like, oh, crap. So then I come in. I said, all right, fine. I got to try to defuse this, right? So I made it sound like it was a PR stunt. So I said, I was like, all right. So I blogged. That's in my blog. I own my blog. And it's still there. The post is all my posts going from my personal blog go back to 2002, from my first life. So I basically wrote 10 reasons why I was trying to explain myself, because I felt like, well, that's not fair. You shared a part of me that I wasn't able to share. I'm very protective about that. It just seems that, Ponzi, she's not here to defend herself now, but we've been over this story publicly countless times. So we've already been down this path, and the things that we learned about each other's boundaries specifically because of that. But it's probably another reason why she's far less transparent about her life online than I am. But that's why, sometimes why family will avoid you. 3, your life gets a rewind button. It's kind of cool to do live streaming. Sometimes. Other times, not so much. Someone has also captured, I think if you Google for Pirillo drops the F-bomb or something, someone actually set up a YouTube account just with that video in there. It's got 30,000 views or something. It's Ponzi and I arguing. And at the time, I didn't think it was very funny. But you watch to the end of the video, and I realized, that was streaming. I started laughing, and I flip off the camera. But now watching it, I've seen it recently. I'm like, damn, that's funny, dude. Because there's nothing you can do about it. You're in the middle. You're in the eye of the storm. There's nothing you can do, right? But now I get to enjoy that for the rest of eternity, as does everybody else. Number 4, your sense of loneliness becomes non-existent. As we become, some people have conjectured that we are becoming, more antisocial. I'd argue the opposite. I absolutely would. I have a better social life online than I ever did offline. Because the awkwardness is gone. I'm still very much myself online as much as I am offline. That's me. Some people can't make that jump. Some people, you meet them, you talk to them online, they're all cool and everything, you meet them, what's up? Like, dude, like, what happened to, like, crazy guy 84, Like, are you off your meds? Are you on your meds? That's true. It's absolutely true. So I'm the person who believes that I get every bit of social interaction that I need on a daily basis. And I would likely say that even without a live video camera trained in on me, I don't take it around with me wherever I go. I don't always have it on. Some people do. Not my thing. Like, I have my own sense of privacy and balance, and I know I want to be able to control that experience. But still let people in on my life, the parts that I want to let them in on. But I feel a lot less lonely. I work at home. I work for myself. I feel a lot less just this island in the stream as I do now, or I feel less lonely than I used to before I started doing live video streaming. And certainly involving myself in various extended online activities. I don't do a lot of gaming though. Number 5, your privacy is in the world's hands. It's true, but you can limit that. As I just said, I kind of control when it's on and when it's not. But sometimes, invariably, you'll do something that you didn't realize you were doing, or the microphone picked up, or the camera went. And you made it happen. But this is it also speaks to the point. One thing I don't mind personally, but I know it's a huge deal. If you do any kind of live streaming or live video or any type of even recorded video or audio, whatever, if you shove that in someone's face and they don't know what's going on, that's the wrong thing to do. That's rude. That's like, kicking them in the nuts and saying, "Is it okay that I kick you in the nuts?" It's not cool. Absolutely not cool. And I've seen it happen more than once. It's just rude. You've violated someone's personal boundaries. It's okay for you if you've already made that decision, but you have to give someone, you have to get their explicit permission that they want to be participating in something. It's another reason why I don't carry the live camera around with me wherever I go. I have to warn everybody, like, no, dude, it's streaming live. Are you cool with that? No, I'm not. Okay, well then let's go somewhere else, or whatever it happens to be. Although anybody who knows me just kind of assumes now that the camera's on, so it's like, okay, I'm lucky. Number 6, you can't lie about where you are or aren't. So let's say I happen to be dodging this, like, oh, I'm homesick, and then one of you guys in the audience is like, dude, Pirillo's like jumping around on his desk, what the hell? And, I had the jumping sickness. It can happen, like, you have to, like, it's really bad because, when my phone goes off, it's on the desk or whatever, I mean, sometimes I'm, like, oblivious to it because I've got the ringer off, but sometimes when it goes off, I'll look at it, catch the caller ID, and then go back to my work, not think anything of it. And then I'll get an instant message, 5 minutes later, dude, you totally dodged my call. Well, I can't say, I was indisposed, I was jumping sickness. So you can't lie about it anymore because people know where you are. So you just got to be a little more creative. I'm sorry, I was like busy with something. Number 7, you monitor your idiosyncrasies like never before. Every one of you in this room has a habit that you never want anybody to find out about. You do something, maybe 2 things. Maybe simultaneously, they're not independent. But you do something that you would be mortified. Oh my God. If someone found out that I flick my earlobe after I sneeze, I'm going to die. Just idiosyncrasies, these weird little things that you do. Well, suddenly, if you're not aware or monitoring the fact that you're being monitored, you're going to lose yourself. Well, now I've luckily gotten to the point where it just doesn't bother me. I talk to myself, even if I'm in the shower. Oh, what are you talking about? I don't know. Maybe I should do a podcast. I just do the audio. I'm like, this is Chris Pirillo shower time. Oops, drop the soap. I talk to myself anyway, so put a camera on me. I mean, hell, make it entertaining. Number 8. Oh, the threat of the MPAA, RIA, and the DMCA lawsuits is real. Because I happen to watch TV, and I don't always leave the room, or I'm listening to music that I don't necessarily have the rights to. I don't listen to a lot of it, and quite honestly, like, the people who are probably watching me have already stolen it anyway. So it's like, oh, no big deal. But I've definitely tried to branch out and play a lot more like indie stuff, which I really enjoy. I enjoy just having something on in the background, never really listening intently, unless it's like one of my favorite artists. Just listening to something, oh, it's kind of cool. So I do listen to a lot of indies that way. But you got to be careful, especially if you're rebroadcasting. Number 9, you can become an event superhero. When you have the ability to live stream it, everybody with a laptop and an internet connection does, as long as you have the webcam. As I said, There's a variety of services you can use for free. Don't pay anything. You're a chump if you do. Ustream.tv is the one I've been with for so long. And because they've basically done everything that I've asked them to do. Like, you have to do it this way, otherwise it won't work. And they're still not doing some of the things that I want them to do, but whatever. But you have the chance to save the day. There may come a time where, let's say, like everyone in here had a laptop and was like, dude, we need to be broadcasting this out on the internet, but we don't know how. You can stand up, I know how, I have a live stream right here, it's a webcam, just talking to the mic. And then you can just suddenly save the day and like, yay, Bob, whatever, I don't know. Maybe your name's not Bob. By the way, what the hell is this? Is this like some kind of fetish thing in Arizona that I'm not aware of? I don't know, I probably shouldn't have touched it. Number 10, you become more honest with others and yourself. And it's very much true. You can't, as much as you can't lie to other people, the person you've probably been lying to for all these years is yourself. Like, I'm going to look down because I don't memorize faces very well. It's like, let's say you've got a bald spot in the back of your head and you're like, oh, it's not really there. It's Ron Popeil comb over spray on hair thing. And, well, suddenly it's there and you can't lie to yourself anymore. There are things about yourself that you do, that you say, Chris, you cuss too much. Chris, you don't cuss enough. Chris, your monitor's too small. Your monitor's too big, or things that you have or that you do or that you say or that you feel. These things become exacerbated, larger than life, because it's that person's perspective, going back to someone projecting themselves onto you, which is where I think a lot of the negativity online comes from. I'm sure you have a certain amount of twits, I guess that's what we used to call them, I think, in Usenet, the news groups, twits. I guess that. No, long before that. Long before that. But the idea, though, that you have a certain perception of yourself, but other people have a completely different perception. Some people only know me from what I've let them know of me. I mean, obviously, believe it or not, there is a deeper level of Chris Pirillo. Like, it's not just, some people just thought I was relegated just handling low-level tech support calls because of the work that I did at Tech TV. I'm like, no, I can do a lot more than that. I have a lot more interests than just that. I can do it, sure, and it's fun, and I enjoy it, but there's much, I'm a walking Venn diagram, and I've got so many other circles around me. But the one thing that you learn not to do is lie to yourself. And if you don't like something about yourself, well, you have the power to change it. But something that's going to really bring it to light is other people watching you do something that you don't like about yourself. So that was a long way to answer the question, but hopefully, again, you got a little bit of nuggets out of that one. I don't know.
Well, the top 10 was excellent.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm not really a presentation kind of guy. Thank you, you're welcome. My mind works a lot like, I've said this before too, it works a lot like the Windows Start menu where it'll go up and out and it'll snap back inevitably, or it'll disappear. So then I think there's my email address. So, I don't know how we are in time, but obviously, how are we on time? We're okay?
Yep.
Cool, like, I can
Only 10
keep,
minutes left, so
okay, I can still take the questions as I have throughout the entire hour. I have no problem dodging answers. Yes?
Are you just as passionate about anything else that you wish you had the same popularity that you do want to talk about? Is there anything you can talk about?
Is there anything I can talk about?
Well, like say you had just as big as interest in, I don't know, in pole fights or something.
Right. Could I be just as passionate about that? Do I
Yeah.
wish I could be as passionate on other things?
Yeah.
If I scale that back, I think I could probably be a motivational speaker, but I don't know about what. Get up in the morning. Do it, idiot. It's probably be a bad motivational speaker. I've talked to different groups about various and sundry topics, but it's usually just what interests me. And I think for me, it's always about the human connection. I've always believed that the internet is less a series of cables and more a series of people that are just finding their way together. Whether that's through dating, or whether it's just through like, hey, we both like playing this game, or we both like talking about this, or something that makes you feel less lonely. I wish I had that growing up. I probably would have turned out to be far less dysfunctional than I actually am today if I had something like the internet growing up, having those series of connections. So no matter the topic, it seems, whether it's pillow fighting or what, there's that common thread of the internet is not touching one thing. It's touching everything. It's become far more pervasive. Technology has become far more pervasive than it, increasingly so. I mean, it's not going to disappear. It's just not. It's going to get better, easier, faster, more affordable. It's something that touches everybody. So no matter the topic, I can usually tailor it into something that I'm passionate about. But yeah, there are times, you know, it's difficult when you establish yourself as someone who's I'm passionate about technology. Well, as soon as I step forward and give a political perspective, some people aren't ready for that. They're like, no, I'm not used to you that way. You need to be another way. I'm like, F you. I'm like, this is me. This is my belief. You don't like it, you go somewhere else. It's your problem, not mine. But it happens very frequently. If you carve out a niche for yourself and you suddenly go outside that niche, it's like it's you're going to be happier, but that community and the people who know you and follow you aren't necessarily going to get it. And sometimes that's fine. Sometimes that's okay. I treat each one of the things that I do, or I try to treat everything that I do, as this cohesive experience of Chris Pirillo, because it's me, it's what I own, it's who I am, and less about one thing or another. I mean, I even make a disclaimer, we're typically talking tech. I do typically do that, but I don't get caught up in a lot of the things that other people get caught up in. It's just a broad topic. But like Billy Joel, anybody listen to Billy Joel? Got all his albums? Did you get his classical compositions? Just curious. You know, I love Billy Joel. I do love Billy Joel. I mean, strictly platonic. Oh, dude, no, I got a pillow. I crocheted a pillow with Billy Joel. Down Easter Alexa. That's what I call the pillow. Yeah, you know, as soon as he made this change for himself, his fans weren't necessarily ready to accept that, but he needed to do it for himself. And he stepped out. Was it successful? If he thinks so, absolutely, 110%. That's how I've always defined my success. My success is, am I happy? Did I get what I wanted out of it? Am I doing what I like? Yes. Okay, fine. So it doesn't matter who else outside of me got it, or how many times I had to explain a joke. Question?
What do you think about the internet? How is it going to evolve? How do you think it's going to evolve?
How do I think the internet's going to evolve? Well, we're certainly going in the direction of IPv6. I think there's going to be a far less silos of information and data, and more true. This is what the Web 2.0 meme was supposed to do, is like break down these walls, when in fact those walls still most certainly exist. It's going to go to a point where it is a given. I mean, it's a given now, but as I said, we're still kind of fighting this chasm of the haves and the have-nots. We're now leading. How old are you? Sorry, can I ask? Yeah, 13. Okay, I started online before you were born. So, you've had a different chance and a different set of opportunities than I did, and the next generation behind you will have even more. The broadband will be just there. It's like, well, it used to be a point where you walk into a hotel and you say, do you have like phones in the room that I can plug into? So you'd have to dial into AOL or some Earthlink or some account. Well, now it's almost a given that they have Wi-Fi or internet connectivity, and if they don't, you're like, where's the internet? Because you got a toilet, but you don't have the internet. Like, there's seriously something wrong. One amenity, not another. Hey, if I got to do that, I got to do that. So it's like, what's up with that? And now it's a given. And when it's not, then it's the exception to the rule. And you're going to see that happening more and more. I've done this before. Gone up to, I don't know if anybody's done this. I have. I've gone up to pull up the gas station, got to get gas. I don't care how much it costs. I have to get it. So pop out, come out, shut the door, like, oh, there's no credit card slot. I'm out. Drive off to the next gas station. Oh, I'm so spoiled. But it's like, you know what? After you have that as a convenience and it's not there, you're like, what the hell's wrong with you? This is free. Or like, dude, it's not working. You'll have to come in and pay cash. No, I'm going to another one, or I'm just turning around, I'll go to the other one. It's just far more convenient not to interact with someone if you don't need to interact with someone. There are times that you need to interact with someone, but a gas pump is not the time. So it's going to become more pervasive throughout our lives. Whether, see, being passionate about technology is used to be kind of an exception. Well, now it's everywhere. So if you know anything about technology, you're passionate about computers. I'm into computers. What does that mean, really? Like, I collect floppy disks. They're not really floppy anymore, but I still collect them. What does that mean? Well, now it touches every part of our lives, every part of our society, every part of our world. So that no matter what it is, what you're doing, or what you're talking about, it's there. Even if it's an undercurrent, it's still there. Community is still there. The idea of connecting with people with similar affinities from all around the world is still there. The idea of creating the next new big thing is there, and the tools are approaching this. The collaboration, the ease at which we're able to do all these things, gets lower and lower. The walls that used to exist between one thing and another just suddenly get decimated, either through their own ways and means or through something else that just completely rewrites the rules. I get a call, I think, once a month from some random sales guy, and I just never take the call to tell him, like, dude, stop calling. Like, from Limelight Networks, he's like, we can sell you bandwidth. I'm like, I do it for free. Like, why would I pay for something if I can get it for free? That's another economic thing that I remembered. Like, it's value free. Not to say that everything is free. I mean, I certainly pay for some services. I pay for services that I want to complain about. Because if you complain about a free service, you're the person with the problem. Yes?
What is your opinion on Windows Vista?
What is my opinion on Windows Vista? Are we out of time? I was going through my hat rack. I had a handful of hats, some of which I haven't worn in years. But I had a couple of Windows Vista caps. Don't ask me how that happened. But I thought of wearing it to PodCamp. It's in my suitcase just in case I was having bad hair. Well, I have bad hair life, but I can only deal with it in small increments. But I thought of wearing it just because I kind of come out and said that Microsoft made a few mistakes with Windows Vista, and I think more than anything they offended their user community. They didn't listen to the user community. They've gone more after the corporate environment. They've gone more after that side of the equation. That's fine, because that's where the money is. But in the process, they lost more than a few evangelists, and Vista was the thing that turned me away completely. I think they're going to make okay strides with Windows 7. I've only seen the bits and pieces, but I'm looking at it now going, yeah, you should kind of make that like a service pack for Vista or something. I mean, just because you should give your users more to the point where Microsoft. Okay, you need an example, because I know there's some people in there, I think Vista's fine, it never crashed on me, and I think you're an idiot. Okay, well, fine. Well, if you look at what Vista did, or Microsoft did, with their highest tier Vista SKU, is Windows Vista Ultimate. Windows Vista Ultimate. The only thing ultimate about that was the price tag. Because they promised, they said, we're going to have all these add-ons and these features, so yeah, you can download a sound pack, and internationalization, and a wallpaper that moves. That's about it, so we kind of abandoned it. No clear example of how Microsoft screwed with their community. And they lost more than one person. Next question. No, hold on, one down here. You go ahead.
You got monopoly on questions.
No, it's okay.
This is, I guess in the last issue of Wired Magazine, one of the first articles was talking about blogging. Basically, it's not, don't get into it. If you are doing it, abandon it, and all this stuff. And Calicanis was quoted in it. And, he had retired, I guess, from blogging, and now he's doing his newsletter. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this.
I'm taking my Bologami home. Sorry, Jason. Oh, that was a parody. I'm protected under law, parody. I would agree and disagree, because this is another reason why I'm very good at dodging answers, because I see both sides of the coin. On one side, anybody comes up to me and says, hey, I'm starting a podcast. I'm like, great. Or, hey, I'm starting a blog. I'm like, great. It's going to be abandoned in a month. Is what I'm thinking in the back of my head. because they're getting into it because they, I've got all these great perspectives, all these great things that I want to say and do, and then no one, it doesn't resonate with anybody, and they go, what's going on? Why is no one leaving comments? Why is no one interacting? Why is no one doing this? And my first question to them is, well, where else are you? Where are you participating? Are you participating over here? Are you in this conversation? Are you happy? Where else are you? How many conferences do you go to? How many times do you do this? Where is your, and most people look at me with a blank stare like, well, no, but it's my blog. I'm like, yeah, but people don't know who you are. Like, I am not so full of my own ego to not believe that a lot of people don't know who I am. I'm more surprised when someone does know who I am than doesn't. But the reason why I blog is for completely different reasons why someone else might. The reason why I produce videos is different from the reason why someone else might. If to start a blog is to have this be a realization of a catharsis or an ongoing just monologue with, this is just my thoughts, and all you're doing is just pouring it out, this public journal, then it will be successful because you're doing it for yourself. But most people don't take that approach to creating a blog, a podcast, or whatever because they want to be heard. And sometimes it just doesn't work that way. Not because they're not talented or not because their skills are not just way amazing. It's just there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of content on the net. Most of it's crap. But it's still stuff that draws our attention away from other things. So suddenly now, instead of having the one thing to deal with, now we got 4,000 of them to deal with. I'm like, where do I turn my attention next? So I would agree that having a blog, a lot of people have not abused the privilege, but they kind of do it, and they're kind of going through the motions like, I don't know, someone said I had to have a blog. I don't know what it is. Okay, well then you don't get what you shouldn't be doing. Or a podcast even. There's just, you have to believe, you have to have your mind and your heart and your soul. And once there's a disconnect, it will cease to exist on its own volition, or it'll just fade out. It will just go. And there's times that I've started something and said, oh, this is really cool, but ultimately realized this isn't going to work, and it wasn't working for me. So either I changed the pattern or just let it sit on the back burner. I had to do that with when I started doing the pod. Again, I'm not trying to be egotistical here. I'm just speaking from my experience. This is what I own. I started doing a broadcast with a partner of mine, and we started doing the podcasting before it was the word. So we were doing it before, a lot of people started doing it, and then over time we realized this just wasn't working. We were doing a live audio feed with a chat room, and it just went on the back burner for a couple years. It's just we had sponsorship, we had an audience, but there's nothing there. It just I wasn't feeling it. And then Ustream came along, and I'm like, that's it. Fire under my foot. I put 2 and 2 together, and now it's just part of my life as much as everything else. So I would agree. Don't just start a blog to start a blog. Don't start a podcast to start a podcast because everybody's doing it. You feel you want to do it. Do it for a reason, and really believe in it, and love it, and nurture it, and understand that there are a zillion of them out there. And if you think that you're the only person writing or talking about X, Y, or Z, I guarantee you're wrong. Unless it's so niche that no one else is covering it, the chances of something else really happening out there is greater than anything. And it gets that way every day. And more people get a blog or a domain. And they're cheap. Pennies on the dollar. I remember I could have registered any domain name on the planet. I chose Locker and I was actually worried that someone else was going to get it. Oh God! It cost me $70. 100? No, I think the first one was 100. The next year, because you can only do it a year at a time with internet. I'm telling you, man, I don't look all that old, but the gray's coming. Trust me, I'm gonna wake up one morning. Question. How does blogging? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that. How does blogging affect your life? Well, it's put me in touch with old friends because they find me on Google, and it's given me a chance to be myself and write about the things I want to write and say the things that I want to say. If I want to make a cartoon about farting in a sauna, damn it, I'm going to do it. No, I kid you not. There's a... now I am going to need audio here. All right, I'll take you guys out with this. There's a website. I love looking at new internet sites. internet sites as opposed to, you know, what kind of pamphlet sites? I don't know. How the hell does this work? This is so not Mac friendly. Dude, seriously, I can't do a scan out and get the audio. No, that's not going to happen. Is there audio out? Does anybody know if there's audio out on this?
Yes.
Is there? If you don't mind.
And I say that loosely.
I understand. Everything's in theory. People hate when I say, yes, in theory, I can do this. Okay, I'm going to... yeah. Yeah. Well, it's not going to make any sense if... it's not going to make any sense if... yeah, I have the audio stuff. I wonder if I... no, I don't know what I got it. I can't remember the exact title, but I have to find it. This is... Where's in mine? Oh, I forgot. I'm not using that. Did we get it? Yeah? Nah? Okay. Well, this is that's the, well, this won't be loud enough. Actually, what I can do is this. Where's the, you don't need the video. You've got that video. That's definitely not going to happen. Syncing is not going to happen. Okay. We will do our best to pull this off. There's a site called, oops. No, that's not the site. Just a program crashed there, apparently. There's a site called Extra Normal, xtranormal.com, Extra Normal. And what you can do is you can create videos, like cartoons or whatever, and you can create your own dialogue, and it creates this cartoon that you can then embed or share, and people can remix these cartoons. It's the cartoon that I have there on the screen. Let me make sure audio's up. Oh wait, no, you didn't have speakers, you said, so let me try. Can you hear that? No, you kind of can. All right, so okay, this is not going to work. Okay, so basically it creates this environment or whatever, and you can get a variety of characters. This is just the one that struck me as kind of odd. So
I like farting in the sauna, especially after a large meal. Garlic farts are the best.
Garlic farts are the best.
They're nice and nutty.
They're nice and nutty.
And have a bouquet like an Aborigines armpit.
And have a bouquet like an Aborigines armpit.
Did you hear that?
Did you hear that?
Of course you didn't.
Of course you didn't.
It was silent but deadly.
It was silent but deadly.
And that was anything but silent.
That was anything but silent.
About 5 minutes ago, I farted the color right out of this video.
I farted the color right out of this video.
I rule.
I rule. And that's it. Extranormal.com. Just keep these funny. So like that was kind of dovetailing with whatever I can talk about. Thank you.